What's going on, guys? So as the title of this video suggests, today I will be going through all the modifications that I've done to my FJ Cruiser, as well as the modifications that were done to it by the previous owner in the past, and just talking about what it would cost you to do each one of these things if you were to do it on your own during this downtime that most of us in the country have. And if you wanted to use your stimulus package that you're getting from the government that is mainly for necessities, but if you were to use that to purchase modifications, I'm hoping this video will give you a good starting point. And then I will also have all the videos that I have done when I've done each one of the modifications. I will have those listed out in the description below also, and I'll try to have little picture-in-picture things pop up just so that you get a basic idea of what that video looks like. But I will have these modifications that I'll be talking about organized based off of price, starting with the lowest price first and just going up in price after that. I will also be talking about the difficulty of each one of those, if it was an easy one, if it was a hard one. Hopefully I won't make this video too long. I'm trying to keep it under the 10-minute mark. Starting off with the modifications though, the cheapest, the easiest, and probably my most favorite modification is the simplest one. The side steps that I have here, and it's not the installation of the side steps. These came on the FJ Cruiser. I think they were probably about $100. They're really kind of cheap ones. But what I ended up doing is to prevent door dings in parking lots. I bought these. It's actually 2 sets of universal hood risers, and it's basically just a really fat washer that just goes between the bracket of the side step and the frame where the side step bolts to. And it helps prevent me from getting door dings in a parking lot whenever I park beside people that just don't care and they open their door and ding your car door, like has happened there. And if this vehicle is clean, you'd be able to see all of those. But it's not as much of an issue anymore because I have the hood risers on there, and they were probably like $10 a piece. I had to buy 2 sets, but they basically, what they're meant to do is they're meant to just to go between the hinges on your hood and the hood itself, so that it rises the back of the hood up, so that it can vent out hot air on a performance engine. But I'm not using it for that. I'm just using them for this. So it brought out the side steps an inch, and that is 1 more inch of protection that I have whenever I park beside people in parking lots that just don't care when they open their vehicle and they slam their car door into yours. So by far, that is my favorite modification. The next 2 modifications I'll be talking about, it's more if you have installed a cheap lift kit. Cheap lift kits normally don't come with these things, but one of them is the sway bar drop kit, and that's just these 2 brackets. There's one on this side and one on the other side, but that lowers the sway bar to align with your lift, so it matches your lift a little bit. And then this is the differential drop kit, and that just lowers your front differential a little bit so that you're not putting as much stress on your CV joints. Each one of those are $20 a piece. Not very difficult to do. It took, I think, 10 minutes to do the sway bar drop and 30 minutes to do the differential drop. There's videos for those down in the description. Okay, the next thing up is the body mount shop, and this is actually, if you can weld, it's far cheaper because you really you don't even need to pay $35 for the brackets that I bought there. But you basically just cut off a couple inches of the metal that's around the body mount, and then you have a friend weld in the brackets. These that I have, they came from Metal Tech, and they were $35 for a set of 2. There's one on this side, there's one on the other side, obviously. But they keep your tires from running. These tires are about 33 inches, and they just barely rubbed the body mount before. So after doing the body mount chop, it fully got rid of the rub. And my tires would only rub before whenever I turned them fully to the left or to the right. That's when I would feel the knobs on the tires bumping the frame. So the next cheapest modification that I have that I'm talking about is lights. So $40 for the lights on the roof. That one and that one. They're cheap ones. Those were actually free. The ones that I made the video on installing the roof lights were 24 watt. I think they're Our Best brand. I forget exactly, but it's basically a Chinese company sent them to me for free for me to do a review video on. And they were actually really good. But I put those on the roof after another company wanted me to do a review video on these, and I used to have those mounted to the bumper, but now, if you saw earlier when I started the video, I have changed out my bumper, which I will talk about a little bit later. So I have upgraded my bumper as well. Those were $40, and it's fairly easy to find lights like that, and they just provide you a ton of light off-road. And I'm only mentioning this part because it ties in with the lighting on the roof, on the rear, and then on the bumper. I have switches and installation videos on like the wiring and how I ran my relay box, how I ran all my wiring and the switches, and how I tapped into the factory fuse box. I'll talk about the cost of that a little bit later whenever I get to that price level section of the video. But I do have those videos down in the description if you want to check those out, and I go through all that, the wiring that's necessary for the roof lights, reverse lights, and everything. Now, the next cheapest modification on the list are actually LED headlights. These were about $40 also. The ones that I have aren't that great. I only have them in because they were sent to me for free for another company that wanted me to review them. I don't like them too much. There are better, more well-made ones. I think the Oxbeam are the ones that I'm probably going to end up buying and swapping these out for a little bit later, just because those are more well-made. Now, the next cheapest modification is actually on the inside, and this is probably my second favorite modification. $48 is what it costs for the switch. And yes, I have my keys in my ignition. Sorry if that annoys some of you. ATRAC button that is right there. $48 switch. The wiring is already in your vehicle, even if you didn't come with that option. This is a full base model, the cheapest FJ Cruiser that you could get at the time, and it came with the switch wiring. This is a 2007 model. It came with the switch wiring in it, just to buy the $48 switch, plug it in, and now when I'm off-roading, I can press the button and I have ATRAC. But I do have in the description, if you click on that video, you'll see more about how ATRAC works. I think I did a fairly good job of explaining it with mentioning a couple other people's videos when they're showing how it works, and just putting it all in one location for one video to click on and talk about and explain it. Super easy. I think it took 5 minutes to install it. Now, the next cheapest thing on the list would be high-angle CV boot, and the ones that I bought were MULE Outfitter that I actually had to install because I have a lift on this, and my lift, even though I did a differential drop kit on mine, the differential still sat at an angle where it wore out my CV boots. So the factory inner CV boots end up rubbing at a certain spot if you have a lift on yours, and when they rub too much, they end up rupturing. And then all the grease comes out. Now, if you're noticing that I have black door handles, so that is the next cheapest upgrade. And these are about $30 a piece, $60. They're getting easier to find now, but at the time that these were put on by the previous owner, you had to buy the Toyota Tundra ones from an earlier model Toyota Tundra. So you do that if you want to buy the cheaper ones. Otherwise, you have to buy the Toyota FJ Cruiser black ones that are made for the Trail Team Edition. So next thing, now I'm on to talking about switches and relays, and I'll have to open the hood for that. But coming into the interior, so these are my switches that I have. Reverse lights, these only come on whenever I have the vehicle in reverse, but these are reverse off-road lights that are mounted on the roof. My front roof lights, those will come on whenever I flip the switch. And then the fog lights, those are the ones that are in the bumper that came in my Smittybilt M1 bumper, but I used to have other fog lights that were there. So I could turn them all on at the same time. These are the only ones that will come on when I have it in reverse, so I don't blind somebody that's behind me in a parking lot at night. Going to the fuse and relay box. Fuse and relay box, I think it was like like 15 bucks for the relays for a pack of 5. The fuse box came with the fuses, and it came with all the little pins, and I think this was probably like $20 for that. I basically wire the internals of this whole fuse and relay box. I like to have it all neat and tidy in a box. There's supposed to be a cover on it, and there's not, so there's a lot of mud and dirt that's gotten on that. And then the switches that are in the interior were $10 to $15 a piece, so you're looking like $70 to $90 depending on how cheap you can source those parts. The next thing is now getting into about the $200 range. I just made a video replacing my wheel bearings. So these wheel bearings have actually been pretty good. They're cheap AC Delco brand, which I don't like too much. I was kind of forced into buying whatever I could buy, which is I live close to an auto parts store, so I just went over and got what I could from them. what I wanted to install were the moved wheel bearings, which is what I'll be talking about. It's a more durable, more off-road style wheel bearing. A lot of guys have a lot of faith in those. They've used them extensively off-road. MOOG is the brand. They come out to about $200, $250 for the set of two. Pretty long and involved process. Not the easiest job in the world, but it is doable. It's just a long process. If you have a buddy that's at an auto shop, it makes it even better, because once you pull off your hub and bearing assembly, then you can take it to them so they can press in the new bearings, and then that's done. So suspension wise, I have a rough country kit, known to be a cheap kit, but it has actually lasted me off-road for the last 4 years since I installed it, so it's actually fine. Shocks aren't leaking, everything's good, there's no knocking on the shocks. But the rough country kit, it was $250, so it wasn't too bad on price, but it also does not come with the two things that I mentioned before, which is a sway bar drop kit and the differential drop kit, which are two things that you will definitely need. Otherwise, you'll end up causing problems. I will mention some caution with using the rough country kit or with any kit that has a front spacer. If you're doing a lot of off-roading, the factory suspension is known to break off at the bottom if you just have a spacer on top of the factory strut. So to avoid that, you will want to, I think some people are using the Bilstein replacements, which it's a little bit of a taller strut that replaces the factory strut, and it looks pretty much stock. If you want to go with a more expensive option and you want to do something like I have the OME shocks with the OME 886 coils, which I'll talk about the prices of those a little bit later. Next thing up on the list is the Gobi ladder. These are about $300, $350 if you could find them. They're getting harder and harder to find, but how it bolts in is it doesn't bolt in. It actually just clamps on to the top of the door, and it clamps on to the bottom of the door. It's actually pretty sturdy. The next thing up on the list I actually have not installed yet, but it's a CSF all aluminum radiator. I'm hoping to be installing it soon and making a video on that. When I do, that video will be posted, and the link will also be in the description. It's only about $350. Now the benefits of it would be that your factory radiator comes with this plastic end caps, which the seals on the plastic end caps are known to dry out after about 10 years. FJ Cruisers are getting to be about, like this one is 14 years old because it was made in late 06, sold in 07. So 13, almost 14 years old. I'm expecting the seals to go out soon, which is also why I have that radiator on standby. Installing a radiator like this, it's fully aluminum, so it does not have the plastic end caps. It has aluminum welded end caps. It's one solid piece of aluminum that's all welded together. So there is, unless you get in an accident, it will not leak. I love that, and I love being able to trust that when I'm off-road, because if you overheat and you're off-road, what are you going to do? You're off-road. Next thing on the list I've actually recorded a video of, but I have not edited the video yet. Still in the $350 to $400 range. Alternator upgrade. Now, the alternator that I ended up getting and installing in my FJ Cruiser after mine failed about 2 months ago now, and I also have a video that has not been edited yet, but I will put that down in the description when I have that ready. The 2005 to 2015 Toyota Tacoma alternator, more specifically the Toyota Tacoma alternator with a tow package, is a 130 amp output alternator compared to the FJ Cruiser alternator, which is a 100 amp alternator. The 2005 to 2015 Toyota Tacoma has the same engine that the Toyota FJ Cruiser has, but the FJ Cruiser didn't come with a tow package that had an alternator that was 130 amps. This one does. So basically you can buy for $350 to $400. You can't find them new, but if you can find a remanufactured Denso brand, the Denso remanufactured alternators are remanufactured at Denso, so the same parts that went into them are the parts that would go into the factory Toyota Tacoma, so it's just as reliable as a factory Toyota Tacoma alternator. You can upgrade your alternator and put in a different one, expensive, like a $400 one, but will that one last 100,000 miles like the Toyota Tacoma alternator will? And I'm pretty sure it will not. Most alternators will not last as long as the factory Toyota Denso brand alternators. Something to keep in mind also, if you're going to change out your alternator, you don't want to be off-roading and have your alternator fail. Excellent upgrade, 130 amp It's really beneficial if you have a lot of extra things, a lot of lights installed on your vehicle that did not come factory. Now, next thing on the list, Bushwhacker Fender Flares. These are about $300, $350, depending on where you can find them, how cheap you can find them for, but they're roughly in that range. The video that I have in the description is pretty detailed. I talk about the plastics that you have to cut whenever you remove your factory Fender Flares. They're not bolted into the body. These bolts are just for looks. They're really just sitting there. One caution that I do have with installing these Fender Flares or any other brand Fender Flares is this rubber seal that sits between the plastic and the paint. It's great, and it's good to have a rubber seal that sits between the plastic and the paint, but it does not stick to the paint. This rubber seal just sits on top of the paint, which means anytime you go off-roading and you get your vehicle covered in mud, there's a chance that you're getting dirt and mud and things like that underneath that rubber seal. And when that dirt and mud gets underneath the rubber seal, it rubs against the paint. I pulled mine off in another video that I'll also have down in the description, and you can see a line where I rubbed a line into the paint, basically. So yes, it's a rubber seal that sits against the paint and protects the paint, but if you're just doing on-road driving, you don't have to worry about that as much. If you're doing off-road driving, you're going to get dirt underneath that rubber strip, and it's going to scratch away at your paint. Eventually, it's going to scratch through the paint, and then you'll have to deal with rust. How you can remedy that is you can buy some thick pinstriping and just basically go around underneath that rubber seal, some black pinstriping. Won't be that noticeable. That sticks to the paint, and then the Fender Flares will rub on that pinstriping so that they won't damage your paint. That's something that I should have done when I initially installed these, but I had no idea that that rubber strip would get dirt underneath the paint, underneath it, between it and the paint. So it's one of the things that I very much don't like now about installing the Bushwhacker Fender Flares. My second caution that I will mention with installing Fender Flares in general is I have helped friends install ones that were not Bushwhacker brand, and they do not fit very well. They're not made well. These contour to the body perfectly. Off brands that are cheaper, yeah, you're saving some money, but they're very hard to install. They're very hard to install. Just gonna leave it at that. Don't buy those. Spend a little bit of extra money and then put the Bushwhacker Fender Flares on. So next thing up on the list is my roof rack. This is one of the cheaper roof racks. It's an ARB brand roof rack. This one's been on for a long time. I didn't buy this. It came, the previous owner bought this and put it on. It's about $550. So it's not bad. But I like it for the ability to be able to haul things that are larger. I can stand on top, I can walk around on top. But I don't like not being able to wash the roof of my vehicle, and being able to carefully wash the roof of my vehicle, especially if I have gritty things like mud and dirt, stuff like that on it. Next thing up, getting into about the $600 range, I did mention that I installed the Rough Country suspension. There's a 2.5-inch lift rear. I didn't mention that before. I installed the Old Man Emu 90,000 Nitro Charger Sport front shocks with the 886 heavy coils. Now each one of the shocks were I think it was like $180. And then the 886 coils were about $200 for a pair. So you're looking at close to it's like $550 to $600, depending on where you are with shipping. It probably will be closer to $600. But it gives you a really sturdy front end. I'm able to corner on road with this pretty hard, and I don't get a lot of body roll, which is one of the things that I wanted to limit having a lifted SUV. So not a lot of body roll, that's a plus. Not as high of a risk of rolling over, even though it's an SUV. It's a heavy SUV, so you do still have the risk of rolling over. And they also help out with my bumper that I'll be talking about a little bit later too, because it's a 150-pound bumper that's now on the front of the vehicle. Another one of my favorite modifications that I have is down here in the front wheel well. Total Chaos Fabrication upper control arms. Total Chaos is the brand. Upper control arm is what it is. And basically, if you have a lift kit on your vehicle, or if you plan to get a lift kit on your vehicle, these are $700 for the pair. There's one on this side, one on that side. So $700, and it helps to straighten out your front wheel so that it sits more upright when you have a lift, instead of the front wheels being a little bit tilted. because they will tend to tilt a little bit. Well worth it, especially if you have off-road tires and you want them to wear evenly on the front. I have a video down in the description below where I installed those. And then going a little bit more expensive, getting around to the front, Smittybilt M1 bumper. And then I actually bought these extra. It didn't come with the tow hooks. So came with the lights, $800 shipped, and then I picked it up from 4-Wheel Parts. So if it's shipped to your house, it will be a little bit more. But $800 isn't bad for what you get. And I'm still looking for like what kind of winch I want to get. $800, me and my girlfriend installed it in about 2 hours, so it really wasn't that bad. It's just very heavy. It adds about 150 pounds to the front end of your vehicle, so you will need a more heavy-duty front suspension like the OME front struts. And now getting on to the most expensive modification, that will be my rims and tires. Again, I bought 5 of them. If you only have to buy 4, or if you only want to buy 4 for yours, it would cut off about $500. But $2,500 for all 5 rims and tires. The rims have they're 17x9 Trailmaster something, I forget, but they're 17x9, and they have an offset of -6, so it brings the wheels out just a little bit more than factory. And the tires are 305/65 17 inch, so 305/65, which is about a 33-inch tire. For $2,500, you couldn't use your stimulus check. Not that you should be buying necessities and things like that, but for $2,500, you really need a little bit more than a stimulus check to buy those. But I like these. They end up being kind of heavy to get them on and off by yourself. I don't remember the exact weight. I can look that up and throw that in the description also. That's it though. That's all the modifications to the FJ Cruiser to date. Along with the prices and the difficulty and all of that. So please feel free to check out the videos that are in the description, and make sure you like, subscribe, comment, leave suggested ideas on things that you want to see me install, things that you want to see me do on my FJ Cruiser. I'd love to hear the ideas. So again, thanks a lot for watching, and God bless you guys.